frustrating again with Joel and the 4 to 6 week time frame. I mean, how are you feeling about all the injuries at the moment? It just feels like they're stacking up, obviously with Harry having to set back on the weekend as well.
Yeah, it hasn't been ideal. One thing you try and control is to get as strong as possible and as fit as possible, and at the minute we haven't been able to do that, so we've got to work through other methods to try and combat it.
What does it do for the mindset of the team? Obviously it's great that there's lots of young guys getting chances and opportunities like you said before, but I guess it would be easy for morale to drop if guys keep dropping. How do you as a coach kind of keep fostering that positive environment?
Yeah, well, the players have been really good. Even the ones that are injured. Joel was, up and about throughout the opposition meeting this morning, and ever since he found out virtually from Monday, Tuesday. So, that makes it a lot easier for the playing group and the dynamic about that. And, we need to make sure that they're contributing in some way. They get their rehab done, but, they can still add their advice or opinions and pass on as much of their knowledge as they possibly can to players that are younger than them or getting an opportunity as well.
Obviously, you've been very clear about Logan McDonald being managed through restricted minutes. Do you roll the dice on him, or is he ruled out for this weekend? No,
that's something we've got to look at again through the main session and then have a really good discussion. We're still 3 days out from a game. We'll look through everything. One thing I've said is I want to make sure that the players, when they come back in, can perform at AFL level. Logan's done a solid training block. We'll get all that data in front of us and then make a decision from that in the next couple of days.
Do you look any deeper at what's happening, Dean, in terms of have you had any more re-injuries beyond Harry? It seems like some guys come back and just have some setbacks as well. Yeah,
and that's one thing you always try and look at from across all departments. Why are things happening? Can you avoid them? And some of these are also whether their program that they put in place, their age. There's a lot of variables that we need to look at. So. It's really unfortunate for Harry. There are a couple of approaches we probably could have taken, and we've decided to take a little bit more cautious approach with that.
Is Callum going to be back out training today?
Callum? Yeah. Callum will be out here, so that's a good thing as well. He's building into a training block now. We know Callum's missed a lot of footy over the past couple of years, so he's trained. He trained solidly on the weekend. And he has an opportunity to build him in the next week or two.
Are you confident he's going to be right to go after the next month or 2 weeks, or is it kind of like at the start of the year where you weren't exactly certain how long he'd be out for?
The exact week back, I'm not sure. The good thing with Callum is the volume that he's getting done suggests that he's on the upward trajectory. So, and that's a good part about the program he's put in place, is to get him back as quickly as possible, but also ready to go, that when he is back he can hopefully sustain it.
Lewis obviously has been training really well after that adductor injury and looks like he's set to return this weekend. How big of a boost is that? Because he's definitely in the start of those first 2 weeks of the year, he was clearly almost the number one key defender here.
Yeah, he was, and that's what he used to our footy team. So unfortunately it was a close decision last week. One thing he had to do is tick a couple of things off in the main training session that was just a little bit too close to our game. He trained fully last week on the weekend. He's trained fully this week, and it's good to have him back.
If Lewis is back, does that open up, especially if maybe Logan isn't ready, someone like a Tom McCartan to go back, or even someone like Joel Hamling, for example, who played a fair bit forward in the VFL last year?
Yeah, well, that's something we have to look at. Obviously with Joel out of the team, the ability to, whether you play Pete there, whether you play Tom back there, as you mentioned, Joel spent a fair bit of time in the VFL there last year, whether Logan's there. So that's the dynamic we're looking at the minute. We've got to make sure everyone gets through training first before we fully cement the path we want to go on.
Were you surprised by Port Adelaide's performance at the weekend?
No, not at all. I think what they've shown over a long period of time, certainly under Ken, is they play with a lot of emotion, and we don't expect anything different. Knowing Ken briefly, it's a one-wood of his coaching, and to get his players up and about and the care he has for his players. So, no, I wasn't really surprised. They played some phenomenal football, so we've got to be ready for that.
How do you get ready for a team like that are heavily emotion-based? I can't imagine it's an easy thing to brace yourself for.
No, you got to know that it's coming, and be aware that you don't get shocked by the start of it. So, we've got to make sure that our players come with with the right emotional state and to get into a position where we can really fight from the first bounce.
Hayden McLean was really impressive against the Pies, one of those few guys who kind of really stood up in Joel's absence. I mean, what does he bring to the forward line that maybe Joel and Logan don't know? Obviously, he's a really strong contested mark, and that's maybe an area where you guys haven't quite been able to get up to scratch so far this year. Yeah,
and that's one thing that you want to try and do is the importance of, you talk about contested possessions all over the ground, but ahead of the ball is just the most important. To be able to win your one-on-ones, or to be able to, first of all, halve 1v2s if you need to. So, Hayden at his best, that's what he does. He showed on the weekend that when he did that, and he still left some out there as well. There's still some growth in that area, but, excited he's been back playing footy now for 5 or 6 weeks. So, 3 or 4 AFL games, but the VFL before that, and he's shown that he's ready to go.
And just on Chad, obviously he's spending a bit more time forward this year and learning that craft as well. What is that balance like for you and the coaches in terms of figuring out where he wants to play? Obviously, we've seen what he can do for the midfield. We can see at times what he can do forward of the ball. How do you kind of decide where you want him in certain parts of the game?
Depends on what the game's telling us. I think the state of game's really important. How many mids we do have that can roll through there. Obviously with Callum and Errol and Justin and the like that have been out of the thing, he's been spending a little bit more time on ball. We understand the damage he can do centre forward. But he's also did that certainly last year from being a midfielder as well. So, there's not too many in the comp that can play midfield to the level that Chad does and then also go forward. I think, you saw Danger and the like, that you want to be able to have a few weapons, and Chad's one that has that.
How are you sort of approaching, this injury crisis as a first-year coach? Does it keep you up at night?
You spend a little bit more time thinking about, certainly about, could they have been avoided? Could we change anything once it happens? What other ways can we think about doing our program? But then also the way we want to play as well. To be able to really embed the way we want to play going forward involves a few of those players, but. The challenges, in this caper never seem to go away, and this is just one we're going through.
You mentioned Juzzy, obviously he's back this week after his suspension. Potentially really underrated part of this team. How crucial is it that you're going to get him back, and what does he kind of provide?
He's a really strong two-way runner that can play on ball or, around, whether it's wing or half forward or half back. So he's really versatile for our playing group. I think one thing, he has missed a month of footy. But he's trained really hard through that period, knowing that he can, come back into the team and play his role, which is really important for our team.
And just quickly on your predecessor, John, I know he's getting a bit of potentially a lap of honour or something of those sorts this weekend. I mean, how do you think he'll cope with that?
I think it's certainly something that he deserves. Whether he's waving or smiling, I'm not quite sure, but it's a great opportunity for the loyal Sydney Swans supporters to be able to thank him for the contribution he's made to the footy club, and he deserves a lap or a couple of laps for what he's contributed.
What's his advice been on the whole, just the injury situation, just when it's stacking up and it seems like the world's against you? It seems like they kind of have a good outlook on those sort of things.
I think, and also we've been in this path when John coached as well, and he was really open through that process about how you deal with it. I haven't spoken to him a lot about it. He's sort of tried to let us work our way through it. But it's just one of those things that we've got to knuckle down and get right and enjoy the moment as much as we possibly can.
And just with the forward setup and Logan in particular, do you expect to make a firm decision today on Logan whether he'll be in and out? Because obviously got time with the Sunday game.
Yeah, we'll make it this afternoon or tomorrow morning. Yeah.